Hey there, welcome to the Hello Road podcast, where we talk about unique and forgotten cars, road trips, travel destinations, and our current car adventures. I'm Ethan,
And I'm Paul.
and today we're going to be diving into a bunch of listener questions. Yes, that's right. It's time for another Q&A.
We had a lot of fun with that last one.
Yeah, but before we dive in, if you're enjoying this podcast, would you be so kind as to write a review on iTunes? That would really help us get the podcast out to more people, so more people can find out about that. We'd really appreciate it.
Yes, please.
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 So we've got a couple updates. I mean, you mentioned that you drove your Daihatsu. That's kind of something to talk about. You actually got the car out of the driveway and took it for a little cruise.
Yeah, we had the long holiday weekend just passed, and so I took advantage of it by just exclusively driving the Daihatsu around, which was fun and interesting because it was very hot, and the car has no air conditioning, and it also has some very nicely redone black leatherette-esque
Perfect.
front seats. So yeah, it really adds to the effect of the summer. So
Yes.
yeah, it was a lot of fun. But no, even with that, it's still just every time I get in that car, I'm just like, man, it's such an enjoyable car to drive. I always think like, man, this car feels better than the Fit, which is like kind of a
Hmm.
silly thing, but it just does. I don't know. Maybe it's just my admiration for the car just
Sure.
oversteps everything, but who knows? But yeah, so I drove it around. It was very, very nice. Every time I drive it, I think about what I want to do to it. So I've got lots of ideas swirling around in my head. So
Okay.
we'll see. So
All right. You got to get prepared for the next Radwood.
yes. What about you?
So I actually drove the Nova Twin Cam a little bit this past week. It was also, not too far from you. So it was a billion degrees out, over 100 degrees a couple of these days. So
Hmm.
no air conditioning kind of meant it was a little sweaty, but fun. I love driving that car. The Geo, on the other hand, still haven't got it smogged, just haven't had time to get to it. So it's just kind of just move it around here and there. But that's really all that's been going on with the cars that I have in the fleet at the moment.
Hmm.
But there is kind of big news. I'm going to be getting my second press car ever, a 2020 Corolla Hybrid, which I'm quite excited about.
Yes.
You wouldn't normally think to get super excited about a Corolla or a hybrid, but I like small cars. I like efficient cars. I've always liked small cars. So I'm kind of curious to see what this vehicle is all about and take it on a little road trip. So
Yeah. No, that's going to be definitely cool. I don't know if I've seen a hybrid rolling around. I just may have missed the trim badging or something, but I
yeah.
have seen some of the sedans, which I like the way they look. I think they look nice. The hatchback looks pretty good, but I think I
Yep.
kind of prefer the way the sedan looks over
Huh.
it. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
kind of just the way. I think it's something to do with the rear tail lights. I think I like them
I
more.
definitely think that it doesn't look quite as nice as something like the Mazda 3, but you know me, I've talked about how much I dislike the Civic. It's definitely a step up from the Civic design, which I kind of
Yeah.
find hard to look at. So yeah, looking forward to driving that one around, seeing what the gas mileage is like, and taking it on a little road trip. I think I'm
Yeah.
going to be driving it out to. There's this museum near Joshua Tree called the Noah Purifoy Museum, which is like this kind of folk art museum out there in the desert. So I'm looking
Ooh.
forward to getting out there and seeing what that's all about.
There and
Yeah.
back on one tank of gas. That's the challenge.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm sure it's easy. Yeah, I would guess that you could probably get. I mean, the loan for the vehicle is probably only going to limit. It's probably going to limit me to 500 miles. So I probably won't even need to. I'll have to just get gas once right before I give the car back. My guess, because the Prius that I have a 2016 Prius, and that usually goes 550, 560 miles per tank. So
Huh.
my guess is that the Corolla is right up there. I feel like it's maybe 1 or 2 miles per gallon off of the Prius, so it's really, really close.
Yeah,
So
that'll be interesting to compare them because you've talked a couple times about your distaste for the Prius. So maybe the Corolla might be a good alternative that might be able to fit a kid's seat and you might be able to see out of, and you might be able to
yeah,
fit in. So we'll see.
sure. Yeah, I think I've been pretty tough on the Prius. Like, it's probably not as bad as I've been saying that it is. Like, certainly I can't fit the rear facing car seat in the back and still have me fit in the car. It's just really uncomfortable. But I think there's a lot of small vehicles that would have that exact same problem. So I
Yeah.
can't really blame that entirely on the Prius. We bought the car before we had a kid, so I didn't really know. Um, there's a few things that I don't like. I don't like the regenerative braking on the Prius. I'm curious if the Corolla just retains that exact same feel or if it's a little bit different.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, and the 2016 Prius also does not have CarPlay or Android Auto, so I'm sure that the 2020 Corolla has that. So that I think there's probably a few things that this will improve upon my experience with the Prius. So we'll see. Yeah,
Very good, very good. Yeah, that's gonna be exciting to get your opinions on that and see how it is out there in the real world, for
yeah,
sure.
and I'm just excited that I've been trying to build my YouTube channel for a couple years, and I finally was able to get the Kia Telluride press car, and now I'm
Mhm,
getting able to get the Corolla. So I'm
mhm.
I'm super excited about that. Just even if I only ever get two press cars, I think it's sort of a win in my book.
Yeah,
So
no, it totally is. It
yeah,
totally is.
so I think now is be a good time to jump into the Q&A. What do you think?
I think we should definitely do it.
Okay, enough talking about Corolla hybrids.
Enough
I don't think
talking about
anybody.
Corolla hybrids and
Nope. Okay. So the first question is from West Zero TA,
mhm.
and their question is your general opinion on Korean cars, and would you consider a Mint 80s Excel in your fleet? What do you think,
Mm.
Paul?
General opinion about Korean cars. Well,
Yeah,
I think that some of the more humble ones from the 80s and the 90s, like, they're definitely up my alley of interesting because, it's kinda like, they're oddballs still at that thing. You don't see them anymore, and I think
sure.
there's a reason for that. And it's
And you
not
didn't
the
see
pe
that many of them back in the day
Well, that's
either.
true. They didn't sell
Yep.
very, very well because it was kind of like, "Ooh, what is this?" You know?
Sure. Sort of
Um
untested.
Right,
Yep.
right, right. But with that said, I think about like that maybe that first generation accent that came out, and I remember seeing, an article in Grassroots Motorsports about some teacher who autocrossed it, and it was like he bought
Yeah.
the car new for 7 grand, and it was just like that was the kind of stuff that I was like, yeah, that's awesome, that's so cool. And then, yeah, you start hearing stories. Like I remember friend of mine bought his first brand new car while he was in high school, and it was was it a Hyundai? I think it was a Hyundai. I don't. It was a Hyundai, I think, or a Kia, and yeah, it lasted a year.
Oh.
So, it was like, but
Ooh.
as for adding one, yeah, I think if I could find a super mint clean Excel, I think is it Excel or X? No, it's XL.
Excel. Yes. Like you're
Hyundai
excelling at,
Excel. I'm
at
saying Hyundai wrong. I've always said it that way because when they were in WRC, that's how they always said it. It was
okay. Yeah.
Hyundai, Hyundai.
Sure, and I was like, does Paul know how to say Hyundai? I don't know."
mm, Hyundai. It's fun to
Sure,
say it that
you
way
can
too.
say that, that's fine.
Hyundai. Um, yeah, I think if there was a minty clean Excel, I'd definitely add it to the fleet if it was
Sure.
the right price. Like,
Well, that's kinda right up your alley, small hatchback,
yeah, yeah,
80s, 90s, yeah,
little box.
um,
Yeah,
maybe underappreciated. Maybe
yeah.
it's appreciated as much as it should be. I'm not sure, but, um, yeah, I don't know. I feel like in terms of Korean cars, when they first came here, they were sort of known as being second tier, kind of Me Too, sort of awkward copies of
Hmm.
Japanese cars. Um, and they sort of quickly went from being that to being their own thing. At least in the US market. I can't really speak to Korean cars outside of the US. I don't really
Right.
know how they were perceived in other markets, but I mean just the fact of, my experience with the brand new Kia Telluride, it's really a fantastic vehicle
Hmm.
with very few flaws, and it can stand up against anything that's out there today. And probably, I think most a lot of automotive journalists would put that right up there as the number one, right up at the top of three-row SUVs in the mid-size category. So, who would have expected that 10 years ago?
Right.
I don't think many people would have.
I think the cars have come such a long way, especially in the last, I would say, 5 years. Like, there's been such, more leaps and bounds in the design and just overall the technology that goes into the cars. So it makes them in a league of their own. Like 5 years ago, what the heck was it? The front of it looked like a Camry, but the back of it looked like an Accord. It's like they kind of were stealing the design language from the other, or
Sure.
copying them. But now they're coming up with their own looks and their own identities. Like I saw
Yep.
a brand new, the hell was it, Hyundai Elantra Sport today coming home, like brand new, like it still had the paper plates on it. And I was like, that's a
Mhm.
really sharp looking car. I was like,
Yeah.
you
And,
know,
you can still see, like, some nods to other manufacturers' designs, you can kinda see where they maybe got a few of their ideas, but they're less outright copies, trying to
right,
be like copies of a Japanese vehicle, for instance. So,
right.
um, and I guess in terms of, like, the stuff from the '80s, maybe not an Excel. I think I'd be down with a Mitsubishi Precis because it's just that was one that you saw even less than the Excel, but it
Mm,
was essentially the same car, I'm pretty sure, right?
I
Um,
think so.
and then here's the other thing to think about is the Hyundai Scoupe. That was the
Yes.
coupe version of the Excel, the whole whopping 81 horsepower. So I think I'd probably prefer the hatchback, but I think it's just important to remember the Scoop. We should
Scoop.
all you should everybody should take a moment if they don't remember what the Scoop looks like, go and pop into Wikipedia and take a look at the Scoop. The first gen was it's not the best looking vehicle, but it is kind of fun to remember that
Yeah.
Hyundai was trying to get a little bit sporty with their 81 horsepower sporty coupe.
Sporty Coupe.
Scoop.
The Scoop.
Yep.
That was a good name for a car.
Yeah.
I mean, I think.
Maybe.
Maybe
Maybe
if
it
you
was
were into ice cream or something.
exactly. Two scoops, just raisin bran. Just you just have two of those next to each other. And you got two scoops, and it's a joke that I haven't quite fully fleshed out yet, but you get where I'm going with it.
Yeah, I do. It's
Um,
good.
yes. So okay. So then, got another question. The Blue XB wants to know: would you import a car from Europe? If so, what would it be? So for me, we talked about this before. Hands down, Renault Aventime, and second choice would be the Fiat Multipla.
Yep.
So both kind of just stupidly weird vehicles. The Aventime is that kind of coupe with it's like a cross between a coupe and a minivan. It's like doesn't make any sense.
Mhm.
Um, that would be I would love one of those. And the Fiat Multipla is just so stupidly weird, and that just took so many risks with the design of that vehicle. It's not a good looking car. I just like the fact that they just decided to do it.
Right.
So I think that one came out in '98, so 25 years, whatever the math is on that. Hopefully, I can get one of those here soon.
98. I think you've got to wait till
Yeah,
2022.
yep. So I gotta whatever that is, a couple more years.
Yeah.
So what about you?
So, keeping up with my scrappy hatchbacks that are European, one car that I've always kind of adored the way it looks and kind of the performance of it would be the Renault Clio Williams, and this would be the 95 model. So it was the first, I guess there was a few different versions, so they'd call it the Mark One over there. Um,
Hmm.
Basically, it was a little Renault Clio, little front wheel drive
Yeah.
hatchback, but the Williams part of it, it had at the time, Williams was using Renault engines in their Formula One cars. So they, they got a hold of some of the cars and did some work to the suspension. And I think they may have, I don't know if they did something to the engine. I don't know every tidbit about the car, but what I do know is the car ends up being 150 horsepower and I think something like 16 or 1700 pounds. So it's actually
Wow. Yep.
a pretty sweet little car.
Hmm.
And then they've improved it over the years, and they had different Clio Williams that came out. There's kind of a cult following with them over there too, and they're kind of cool. I think they predated the Imprezas with the whole blue with the gold wheels thing because the first one
Hmm.
was 95, and that's how they I think they all came was that it was kind of a darker blue than that like a
Yeah.
Subaru has with a gold wheels on it.
Hmm.
Pretty sweet. So yeah, I think
Yeah.
that one for sure. And
Yep.
then if I get to pick two, we're gonna not stray too far from that, and I'm gonna go with the Peugeot 106 Rally, and
Hmm.
that is basically the same sort of thing with less horsepower,
Yeah.
but yeah, it was kind of a meant to be a I don't want to say it was an homologated. homologation car for rally racing, but they kind of just put them out there as like, hey, this is a stripped out car that if you want to take it rally racing, it's ready to go. Kind of in the same vein as a Mitsubishi Lancer Evolution
Mhm.
MR, not the MR. What was it? The rally. I don't know. They had a
Yeah.
version of the
Yep.
car that you can get. Basically, it comes with
Sure.
steel wheels on it, and it's like, okay, go do what you need to do to this thing. But yeah, but Peugeot had that thing come out, and it's a tiny little three-door scrappy hatchback, so it's right up my alley. I think they only came in white with these really bitchin' side graphics on it,
Oh, yeah. Yep.
and white steelies. So it was pretty cool. So yeah, I think those two would most likely be what I'd bring in. There's others, but I who am I to kid? Scrappy hatchbacks. So,
Yeah. That's a good choice. Definitely a good choice. Okay. So, this is a question for me. Lewis Storms. It's regarding YouTube because obviously do my videos
mhm,
on YouTube. He has a question. Have you thought about composing music for other YouTubers? It would be great. So some of you may know that in a past life I was a songwriter and a musician. I'm taking some time off from doing that now, but I intend to record more music and write more music in the future. Just haven't done a whole lot of it lately. But to anybody that is making YouTube videos that need some music, all my music is licensed via a Creative Commons attribution license. So if you're making your own videos on YouTube or other places, you can use my music, and as long as you just credit me and link to my site. So if anybody needs music for their videos, you can find it at stateshirt.com. And I don't really have a ton of time to make music for my own car videos, which is pretty silly. I wish I had time to do that, but I don't. It takes too much time to film everything and edit everything. I don't have
mhm,
time to actually write the music for it too. But so yeah, that's hopefully at some point in my life I'll have more time to make music. But right now it's mostly spent with spending time with my kid and making videos about cars. So
yep.
yes. Um, so in the late 80s, their question is, what's your opinion on the Instagram quote boring car community?
Mm,
So I feel like I think what he's getting at is, or what they're getting at is, basically there's quite a few Instagram accounts that are just showing like normal cars.
mhm,
Sometimes they're often older cars, like, but they're cars like the Chevy Celebrity or like the Dodge Aries or like the Plymouth Breeze or something like that. So cars that were just utilities, cars that were just transportation.
mhm,
Um, and I actually kind of find it more interesting than just about any other car community on Instagram. There's
yeah.
plenty of different car communities out there that are huge. But I find it kind of exciting when you find these old cars that just they just endured. They just
Mhm,
stood the
mhm,
test of time, or somebody was thoughtful enough to care for it, or maybe some grandma just never drove it and it just ended up in the garage or somewhere. And it's just kind of exciting to see people take pictures of these things and get reminded of those vehicles that like I'd say even a lot of these were unloved even when they left the factory.
right.
There's just plenty of cars that nobody really cared about. Everybody kind of crapped on them when they left the factory. Nobody was like just drooling over the Plymouth Breeze. But it's kind of neat that there's people that are paying attention to this stuff now, and they're those cars are getting some love and attention. So I find it fun to watch, fun to follow those accounts and follow the people that are seeking out cars that just most people would just overlook.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Today was a great example. There was, all the different things that I follow, and
Yeah.
I tend to always gravitate towards like, spending more time looking at the picture and just like thinking about the car versus like today, for example, was the Porsche Taycan debut, and all of social media was just buzzing with the car, which,
Sure.
looks great and everything. Cool. But then what was it? What was the picture? Oh, you tagged me in it. That was that was yesterday. When they put
Sure.
up the Tommaso charade, and I was like, yes, see, that's what I'm talking about right there. But
Yep.
no, the other stuff too. I'm in total agreement with like the forgotten things that were just appliances. There's a what is it? A Chevy Cavalier. Now follow
Mhm.
me on this. Chevy Cavalier RS wagon um,
Yep.
that is local to me, and I see it all the time, but I never get a chance to take a picture of it. And it's just like I love that car. It's so perfect, and it's in really good shape too. So I
Mhm.
need to track that guy down one day and take a picture, or girl, or
Yeah,
whatever, and take the picture of the car and be like, "Yes, this is what I'm talking about right here." But yeah,
sure,
no, I mean that's totally like the whole Radwood epitome too. Like it's really cool to see a bunch of 944s and E30s at those shows, but the real crowd stealers are the things that are like, oh, I haven't seen one of these in X number of years.
sure.
So like something like a Chevy Cavalier RS wagon
Mhm.
in
Yeah,
pristine condition is going to get probably a bigger crowd around it than, you know, 13 944s. Not that there's anything wrong with 944s, but that's typically, how at least what I see at the shows and what I tend to gravitate towards. So,
yeah, definitely. I'm gonna gravitate towards those vehicles that you're just surprised that they've made it to
yeah,
2019, or cars that were just underappreciated, or they didn't make that many of them, that many of them. So
yeah,
you're just, I get super excited when you actually see that, and the last time you may have seen that vehicle might have been when you were 15 or something.
right.
Um, I remember uh, and that's actually what gets me excited when I see a lot of these vehicles too. Just kind of brings you back to when was the last time you saw one of those?
Hmm.
Um, my neighbor used to have a Subaru RX Turbo. It was the hatchback. So, um, I don't know if you remember what those look like.
All right.
Super boxy. It was white, had these really cool 80s looking wheels. Um, it was the front end looked like a Loyale wagon, but then it had basically a hatchback back on it.
Okay.
Um,
Okay. Now I know.
yeah, and I just, I saw one of those on one of these boring Instagram, accounts the other day, and it started this whole thing of me, like, looking for trying to find an RX for sale, and of course, there's none.
Of course.
Um, and it's hard to search for too, because when you search for Subaru RX, inevitably the WRX comes up, or, like, some other things.
Exactly.
Um, but, like, so in the late '80s, the person that asked this question, like, their Instagram feed is fun. It's just like, one of the things that you'll see is like, oh, there's a picture of a Ford Tempo GLX, which is, one of those things that was the highest trim level. It's like, it's also kind of neat to remember these little tidbits. That was the highest trim level that was offered for the Tempo.
Hmm.
And they had a picture of the remember the Mercury Capri, the one built in Australia that was basically the front wheel drive Miata.
Right.
Um,
And then they also used that as a Lotus, didn't they?
I don't know.
Oh, wait, no, no,
I
no, no.
don't
That's a
know.
car. There's the Lotus looks similar. The Elan, and then the
You think,
Kia
yeah, the
had a
Elan
version of
looks
it too.
similar.
Okay,
Yeah,
but
I
well,
believe
oh,
you're
I know
right.
which one it is though. Yeah, the
Yep.
convertible one.
Yeah,
Okay.
and then just like there's a picture of um they have a picture of a Mazda 626 hatchback, which is also one of those cars for like an 80 late 80s 626 hatchback. It was one of
Mhm.
those cars I haven't seen in ages. I think the other thing that's kind of a little sad about when you see some of these forgotten, boring, whatever you want to call them, Instagram car feeds, is that you often see ones that are in junkyards, and you kind of
Right.
get a little teary eyed, and or they're completely rusted out, or you know. But that's sort of like, I've sort of been thinking about that a little bit more with my my Geo Prism that I have, my 1991 Geo Prism GSI, which is super rare, and completely trashed. And sometimes I wonder, like, maybe I should not bother trying to restore it. I should just try to get the engine fixed and just drive it looking like a piece of crap, because I could restore it now, and then 10 years later, it's probably going to look like a piece of crap again. So I should just try to enjoy it.
Enjoy it as it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I.
Yeah.
That's kind of the thought process I have with the charade. Like, I could repaint it and do all this stuff to it, but then it just ruins its kind of the batteredness of the car. So, I just kind of want to leave it.
Yeah.
So,
Yep. Yeah. I got to figure out what I want to do with my Prism, because I do feel like it would be a ton of money and a ton of effort to put into to that car, which I think ultimately would be super fantastic. But also at the same time, I should just really focus on getting the thing running properly.
right.
Yeah. Okay. So let's see. This is one from _auto 333. Favorite story of helping a friend buy or find a car? I didn't really have a great one for this. I have a little story, but I don't know. Do you have a one for this one?
Um, well, I guess it would probably it's not a friend, but it's my wife.
Okay.
Her first car, she she wanted to buy a new car when she got her driver's license because she had an okay job. She was going to school, so it wasn't going to be anything super expensive.
Yeah.
But I convinced her. I was like, no, 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 no. You need to get a Volkswagen Beetle
Mhm.
because I had a Volkswagen Beetle and had recently around this time gotten my Ford Mustang. I was like,
Sure.
no, no, no. Beetles are great because they're cheap and they're easy to fix. And yeah, so this was in the early days before, there really wasn't a good auto trader online. So you'd have to use the magazine that you'd get at like 7-Eleven for $1.
Sure.
So we got one of those and we found a nice Beetle. Her first car was a 74 Super Beetle. It was in really good shape. It was green
Mhm.
original paint with a tan interior and it helped negotiate it. I thought I was like such a badass because it was like, yeah, $1,500 for this bug, which you can't get nowadays. The
Sure.
Volkswagens are very,
Oh, yeah.
they're a lot more than that. But it was like $1,500, and it was a great experience up until like 2 or 3 days later when the car caught fire.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So,
Oh,
yeah, so
well,
we fixed
did you
it.
get the extended CarMax warranty with that?
No, it was a private party sale.
Okay. Oh, okay.
So she drove it around for another 6 months until it caught fire again, and,
Whoa.
that was, the end of that one, and she went out and bought her Ford Focus that she owned for 13 or 14 years.
Okay. Yeah.
So yeah, so that was my fun little car buying
Yes.
story.
Well, okay. Yeah. I don't really have a good answer for this one. I actually haven't helped that many people buy a car.
Mhm.
Um, maybe because they know I would be a bad influence on them and get them to buy something kind of stupid. Um, but maybe 5 or 6 years ago, I went with a friend to go take a look at a '69 Camaro, and this was sort of a resto mod. It had a little bit more modern engine in it. Had like all the brakes the brakes were redone, the suspension was redone. So it wasn't I mean, '69 Camaros are expensive anyway, but
Mhm.
this one had quite a bit of work done to it. And just the weirdest thing was that he brought cash. And this
Ooh.
car I think was $39,000. And obviously this guy was, well to do. He didn't have any problems with money.
Mhm.
But I just remember thinking, why how hard was it for you to get $39,000 in cash? Like most banks won't let you take out more than like 10,000 a day. So you probably had to go like to four different banks, and it was just very strange, very weird to just be hauling that much cash around
Mhm.
with him. But I watched over the big stacks of cash while he test drove the car, and it was just odd. And just essentially he bought the car, and the guy that was selling it just, counting that much cash took forever. I think we were there for like, half an hour just counting bills.
Was
It
it
was
all in
pretty
ones?
silly. Yes, exactly. It was I think it was all hundreds, but there were probably a few 20s in there too that made it take a little bit longer. So
Oh,
it was pretty silly. So yeah, not a great story, but just very odd that
yeah.
was the way he chose to buy that car. I was
Yeah.
very surprised.
Does he still have the
Um,
Camaro?
yes, he does. Yep.
Nice.
Still has it. He doesn't drive it that much. He's doing a lot of more work to it. It's funny because the previous owner did all this work, kind of fixed it up. And then my friend who bought it didn't like a lot of the things that he did. So he ended up changing it. It's like, that's what happens a lot of times. You
Yeah.
buy a house, whatever, you're going to want to make it your own. A lot of people do out with cars and you end up spending double what you put into it or whatever. But that's pretty silly.
Yeah. No, no, that makes
Yep.
sense though. I mean, it does. Think about it in like the terms of the house. It's like I ripped out my entire front yard because I didn't like the desert landscape.
Yes.
So, but that's what the previous owners liked. So,
Sure, exactly. Well, and that's the funny thing too. I remember it was when we oh yeah, when I sold the other house, when we sold our last house, I ended up like painting everything to kind of like make it look good for the sale. I ended up like really fixing up the yard and doing a whole bunch of stuff. And then we drove by a couple months later, and the whole yard was completely different. So
Yep.
all that work I spent by myself, like planting plants and doing everything. Like I knew it was going to make the curb appeal really good and help sell it, but it's funny, like all those things that you do to help sell something to make people want it and they just want to go and rip it out.
Yep.
But if I hadn't done anything and I just left the yard like looking like crap, they wouldn't have bought it.
Right.
It's pretty dumb. But
Yeah.
I think the same thing with this Camaro. If it hadn't had all this work done to it, he probably would have just passed. So
Even though it's all undone.
yeah, exactly. Yeah. 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 So that's the $39,000 cash Camaro.
Wow.
Anyway, so actually, auto 333 has another question, specifically for me. What is the story of Liam Neeson?
Ooh.
So we talked about this a little bit before in previous episodes, but I can recap a little bit.
The VH1
So
behind the music.
exactly behind the Lemons theme. So yeah, obviously this is a 24 Hours of Lemons car. It's a 1997 Nissan 200SX SER. So it's got a SR20 motor in it, which is a pretty nice motor when it's running properly. And originally, when we started this team, we bought the car because we thought it'd be easy to drive and pretty reliable, which it has been. We originally had a Harbor Freight Tools theme, which was not really that funny. We called it the Hazard Fraught Fools, which is kind of stupid. But so we basically took a bunch of Harbor Freight flyers and just taped them to the car. So the whole car was just Harbor Freight flyers. And I had some kind of funny stuff. Like I think our number was 20, and I just said 20% off, because you always get those 20% off coupons. So there were all these like little joke coupons on the side of the car. It was kind of fun to put together, but ultimately it didn't really resonate with anybody in us. It was just kind of, we needed to think of something. And then I think we decided after that first race that we did to come up with something a little bit more clever, a little bit more fun. And I came up with the idea of why don't we try to do like some sort of, because you hear about some other, I think there was a few other Lemons cars. I think there might have been a Tom Selleck. I feel like that might have been one. So that kind of got me thinking, okay, Tom Selleck, it was a Lemons car. What about Liam Neeson instead of Liam Neeson? So, it's basically just one of those dumb jokes that we took too far, and now it's something we have to live with. So basically, if I'm sure you've seen the car, we just literally used packing tape to tape pictures of Liam on our car. I think it was the first race that we did that. There was we put a picture of Liam where he's pretty much naked, mostly naked. He's sort of holding his nether regions with his hands to kind of like have a little bit of decency. But we put that on the back of the car, and we found that there were drivers that came up to us after the race or like, halfway through the race that said, that really kind of screwed me up. I was laughing like the whole way I was behind you, and it was screwing up my line, and I was slowing down and like braking where it totally messed with people. So that was like kind of a good thing for us, because we're not really fast drivers. So anything we could do to be faster than the people behind us, we're going to try it. So, and that actually is funny because there was one race that we took off all the pictures. We ripped off every single picture and we painted it green, lime green with house paint. I think it was called Limerita was the color we got from Home Depot. It was pretty bad, and then my wife painted like 2 pictures of Liam on the side, which are still there. And during that race, we found out that everybody in the paddock, everybody at the racetrack that had seen the Liam Neeson theme in the past was so mad that we took off all these faces. Like everybody was so mad at us and angered, and they said, "You have to put all the faces back on. You have to put them all back on." And that we definitely learned that don't change your theme when everybody really likes it. So we have to stick with it because everybody likes it. Everybody gets a kick out of it. So we're pretty much stuck with it no matter what. And the funny thing is, like, I don't know if you've heard, I don't know, like there's some like old wives' tales that green race cars are bad luck.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever heard that.
And maybe it was just like a NASCAR thing. I'm not sure, but I remember hearing that green race cars are bad luck. And I do remember that we had a pretty rough weekend with that green race car, that Limerita race car when we didn't have all the Liam faces on it. It rained a ton, and all the house paint was kind of like coming off the car because we used house paint, so it was just smearing off, and like little specks of green were getting everywhere, like all inside the car, and and that was the same weekend that when I was towing home at the time. I had enclosed trailer with the green Liam in the back, and I was driving. my 2004 Nissan Titan towing this thing. And that was the weekend that this crazy lady, this crazy girl in a Nissan or in a Chevy Trailblazer decided to try to pass me where there wasn't a passing lane, slammed into the back of my trailer and jackknifed my trailer and basically totaled both my trailer and the truck. So I will say, if you have a green race car, paint it. Don't paint your race car with house paint. And if you have something that your fans like, don't change it too much. So basically, we have to keep all of the Liam faces on it. We can never change our theme, or else people will be really mad at us, and we might crash more trailers and trucks.
Wow.
Yep.
That is quite the story. So I do have a question about it to
Sure.
add.
Yeah.
Where did you acquire all the pictures of Liam Neeson?
Oh yeah, Liam Neeson. That's you just Google search. I probably went through $400 of ink for
Oh,
my printer.
so you just printed them. I was just
We literally just printed
I'm
them.
just imagining you and the whole like crew just scoring through magazines and just cutting out anything you could find and putting it all on. Okay, so that
No.
works.
Yep, it's literally cheap paper, crappy ink, and packing tape. And of course, if it rains, we're screwed. Most of the stuff falls off. Actually, the last race, all of the faces and stuff on the top of the car flew off. So everything flew off the top. So we had our number on the top, and like our banner on our windshield all came off. So we definitely bring extra packing tape with us to the racetrack just to make sure that everything stays. Yeah, it's when it rains, we're just screwed.
Oh
There's
man.
no way around it.
Yeah.
And we thought about trying to do something more permanent, but it's just kind of funny to have like packing tape flapping in the wind.
It
So
is kind of
we
funny.
want we want it super super low effort. A lot of times when we're working on the car in the paddock, there's somebody like maybe changing brakes. There's somebody probably checking the suspension components. Checking the oil, maybe swapping out some tires, and then there's obviously somebody there with some packing tape, just like fixing the theme, making sure it's not going to fall off. So if anybody wants to come to the next Lemons race, we're going to be racing late September. I think it's the last weekend in September at Buttonwillow Raceway in Buttonwillow, California. And if you want to help crew, you can bring some packing tape and just kind of keep our car together. Yep.
There you go.
Yeah. So I don't know. I think just like last time, we have so many questions
Mhm.
that people have asked us. We might have to split this into 2 episodes. I think this is going to have to be a 2-episode Q&A session. Want
Sounds
to
good.
maybe do another one next week?
Yeah, I think we should.
Okay. Awesome. Well, thanks so much for listening, everybody. Why don't we do our social media recap? Where can everybody find you, Paul?
They can find me at Paul's Finest Hour on Instagram and Twitter. And where can they find you?
YouTube.com/Hello Road, and on Instagram and Twitter at Mr. Ethan Tufts. And yeah, MySpace. What was the other one that went away? Friendster.
Friendster.
Yeah, I think I'm still on there. Ello. What was that one? The Ello. That was the one that was supposed to like replace everything. It was going to be this
Oh yeah, I remember.
decentralized
remember
social media network that everybody's going to love.
Yeah.
Yeah. I posted once on there and I still get spam through it. Oh well.
Oh well.
Bow down to Facebook, Instagram.
It's all the same.
They're just
thing.
taking over everything.
They are.
All right. Well, I think that's it. And then stay tuned for the additional Q&A for next week's episode.
Thank you, everyone.
All right. Take care.